You're watching Maine Biz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
Plato said, opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. You're going to hear plenty of opinions today, so I hope that Plato was correct and we end up somewhere in the middle. Here to tackle the issues of the day and share their opinions are John Mahon, Dean of the University of Maine School of Business, Nicole Witherby from the Maine Center for Economic Policy, and Steve Bowen from the Maine Heritage Policy Center. Welcome to all of you. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having us.
This is our Rapid Fire Sunday segment, so we're going to try to cover as many of these topics that we can, and we're going to jump right in. Okay, ready? Let's start out with Plum Creek. This is going to be issue 1, Plum Creek. Plum Creek wins regulators' approval. The Land Use Regulation Commission approved the Seattle-based company's plan for more than 2,000 housing units, 2 resorts, and nearly 400,000 acres of conserved land, according to a press release from the company. The final plans include up to 821 residential units, 1,800-acre, 400-unit resort at Lily Bay, a 4,200-acre, 800-unit resort at Big Moose Mountain, and 363,000-acre conservation easement, the second largest in U.S. history. So I guess I want to just start there and say, what do you think about that? Is this good public policy? Is this a good decision? And how does that affect kind of the larger economic issues facing northern Maine?
Obviously, Plum Creek thinks it was a good idea. They've obviously done the research. They've done the market research. They've determined that there's a market for these housing units and the resorts and so forth. So, I hope it's a good thing for Greenville. Certainly they need something up there. Our concern is, what you didn't mention, is it took 4 years to get to this approval. And that's, if you're a business outside of Maine and you're looking to invest in the state, you're looking at the experience that Plum Creek went through, 4 years worth of work to set up a resort that's even going to set aside hundreds of thousands of acres in a reserve. That says something about our business climate, and I think it should concern us that we don't have a regulatory structure that moves a little bit more efficiently and effectively.
All right.
And the economics have changed, too.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see whether Plum Creek decides to hold on to the property or sells it off and moves on itself.
Yeah, I think that the degree to which it's successful will be determined by 2 factors. And the first is the economic market, which is vastly different from when they started. So it's very possible now that secondary home markets is not going to move. And this is not really the time people are looking to build resorts. That being said, they also needed to have some precautions in place because one of the things that drives people to the North Woods is this beauty, this natural beauty that we don't want to stamp, we don't want to trample all over, because if you do that, then the viability of the resort goes down as well. So.
Right. That's another thing I wanted you to weigh in on, that kind of that tug and pull of the Brookings Institute piece. You've got to protect what we have at this state. Right. That's a fundamental bedrock of how our economic development can work. Do these kinds of resorts fit into that? And talk more about that.
Well, I think they can. Certainly we need something. So to pretend that we could ignore the fact that we need some sort of economic development plan in that region would be foolish, I think. And
this fits there. It's something that would work there?
Well, we don't know yet exactly what it's going to look like. And so,
right. But I mean the concept, that type of industry.
I think that there is a place for bringing more tourism there. As I said, this is a place that draws that kind of attention. What will be important is structuring it in a way that preserves the environment, and if you can get an upscale resort in a compact area so that you're not impacting the larger area and some of the more pristine places, then you could you could create a lot of jobs, and the more upscale the resort, the better the jobs, the better the wages.
But John, but the tourism, it's critical for the state. It doesn't generate high-paying jobs. And as a matter of fact, when you go around to the state, you look at many of our tourism areas, Bar Harbor and other areas, they often employ young people from outside the country to come in. So if we're looking for an economic engine to improve the quality of life and the income level for Mainers, tourism, while important, isn't going to drive that engine.
Maine is the most heavily forested state in this country. We have 17 million acres of forest land in this state. They're developing 17,000. So this is a reasonable project. But your concern about building jobs and creating sustainable prosperity goes back to the regulatory issue. George Mason University's Mercatus Center did a ranking recently of freedom in the 50 states. And they looked at lots of freedom indicators: personal freedom, economic freedom. And in the economic freedom section, they looked at regulatory freedom. They ranked Maine 50th in the nation, last in terms of our regulatory freedom, and how easy it is for businesses to come to Maine and create long-term, sustainable, high-paying jobs. And
Okay.
I think that's something we need to look at.
And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about that. Steve's here. We're going to be talking about that regulatory stuff with every question we get to, I think. That's good.
No,
that's
I'm done
fine.
with the regulatory
No, I bet it's going to come up. I'm sure it will. Let's move on to topic number 2. Okay, I'm going to get on to healthcare reform. Maine is a small business state, so I really want to figure out, how important is this whole healthcare debate to our economy? Healthcare reform, what small businesses want. Insurance costs are killing small firms, but many entrepreneurs are ideologically opposed to government-backed healthcare coverage. As Congress prepares to do battle over health reform, a parallel dispute is shaping up among small business groups that are staking out opposing positions on a key element of reform proposals. Quote, our members who are entrepreneurs and risk takers really do fundamentally, at the end of the day, want lower costs and competition, but they're going to be very skeptical of something that has a lot of government involvement, says Michael Demarab of the National Federation of Independent Businesses. So, we need healthcare reform, but how much and how does it affect small business? And also, how important is that to Maine, this kind of healthcare reform issue?
It's crucial to the state. I think it's crucial to the country. The problem is in Maine, I'm thinking we'd all agree on this, but we'll find out, is we don't really have competition in healthcare in this state.
Right.
And that's why we're getting killed. You have Anthem Blue Cross and you have Dirigo.
Yep.
I would not offer Dirigo as a shining success. And as such, we are caught between basically two offerings, which there's no true competition. And without it, I'm not a big believer in just one provider, because eventually we become slave to the one provider. That would worry me.
Okay.
No, it's
So
a
there's
monopoly.
competition.
You can buy, there are 463 companies authorized to sell car insurance in this state. That's the choice you have in car insurance. 463 companies to choose from. And as you say, you've got Anthem, you have Aetna who writes a few policies. That's it. We don't have competition in the insurance market here. Dirigo, I'll go a step further and say it's just been a cataclysmic failure. I mean, it's covered
I'll
3%.
disagree with
I
that.
know. I realize that. It's covered 3% of the people it was supposed to cover by this point. It's cost $155 million.
Okay.
We're being pilloried in the national media about it. It's being talked about as a model of what not to do. So clearly competition is the solution.
All right. Let's weigh in on the competition issue, and what do you think about Dirigo?
I do think that there's not enough competition, and I think that that's, you can look at, talk about regulations. You can look at the idea of moving out of state and trying to buy over state lines as one alternative, but then you don't really know what you're buying. I mean, part of the reason that we have the regulations we do is to protect people from, purchasing a plan that ultimately doesn't cover you when you need coverage. And so I think that what we do need is competition, but I think that comes in the way that you see some of these insurance reforms beginning to take place within the national reform.
What would be nice is if we would engage in some experiments, but I don't think the atmosphere is there to do that. So you
That was Dirigo, right?
Well, no, I mean even at the federal level. You're correct. I snuck it, but I mean, engage in some other experiments in some states and see how it works out.
Okay.
We're talking about 1/6 of the economy. If we don't get this right, no matter what side you're on, if we don't get this right, it could be a disaster.
Okay,
for us.
I'm going to stop right there because we're going to come back after the next segment. We're going to maybe talk some more about this, but then get into other issues too. Great, thanks. We're going to stop right there. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Maine Biz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.